Hello again, and welcome to another Enough is Enough YouTube video. In this video, I'd like to follow up on something that I touched on in my last video. Dr. Chetty made the comment that he believes that the world is trying to treat a COVID pneumonia that's caused by a viral infection, whereas he is treating the more severe symptoms of COVID-19 as a hypersensitivity pneumonitis that's caused by an allergic reaction. Now, this statement has really got me thinking, what if we've missed something fundamental, something very important about COVID-19 from the very beginning of the pandemic? And what if this has meant that we've been basically treating the wrong disease now for almost 2 years? Now, I realise that this might seem a very strange thing for me to say, and some might even find it offensive for me to suggest such a thing. I mean no offence. I'm not even trying to be controversial. I just want to know the truth. And what if this is the truth? What if our lack of effectiveness against COVID-19 is not because of the virus itself, but rather because we've been going about treating it the wrong way? I'll give you an example of what I mean. It was recognised early on that steroids could help in the treatment of those with COVID from very early on in the pandemic. However, there was also a lot of debate about how and when they should be used. Some studies showed there was a benefit, while others showed the opposite. It was a big deal at the time and caused quite a bit of controversy, and eventually the World Health Organization had to put out a paper to clarify the issues around the use of steroids. One paper that I found looked at these issues in detail and tried to reconcile the data. In this paper, it all came down to how effectively the body had dealt with the virus. If you went too early with the steroids, then you weakened the body's ability to get on top of viral replication. You had to wait until the body had the virus under control. And this makes sense, because the benefit of the steroids is that they can actually deal with the excessive inflammation. They don't really deal with the virus itself. And the excessive inflammation is a key issue. If it's not controlled, then the body's immune system can get out of control. And this is one of the main reasons why people have died from COVID-19. However, when I read through papers such as this one, in light of what Dr. Chetty has found, there was one glaring omission. At no point do any of these studies explore the possibility that there's an allergic reaction or a hypersensitivity involved. And so the dose of the steroids is always too low, and there is no real urgency in giving them to patients early either. Not only this, but antihistamines are never even considered, which is unfortunate because they can also be very effective against an allergic reaction. You see, the grid or the understanding being used here is just like Dr. Chetty says. Everyone is so focused on looking out for a viral pneumonia that they're not even looking for hypersensitivity. But if they were, they would be treating patients very differently. They'd be using a much higher dose of steroids as soon as patients showed any sign of hypersensitivity. And they'd also be adding an antihistamine. And if they did this, they would see an almost immediate benefit. And this is exactly what Dr. Chetty has been doing for nearly 2 years now with great success. He's treated nearly 8,000 patients without any going to hospital, with very little need for oxygen, and he's had no deaths. Now, I do realise that Dr. Chetty does use other medications, and he gives detailed information on these medications in many of his interviews. But he's also been very clear that steroids and antihistamines are crucial, and that they are the most effective medications in dealing with the immediate threat posed by COVID-19. So can you see what I'm getting at here? This difference in the interpretation of the symptoms of COVID-19 could turn out to be one of the biggest mistakes, or one of the biggest misunderstandings in medical history. Now, I'm sorry, I'm trying very hard not to be alarmist about this, but when I stop and think about all of lockdowns, all of the restrictions, all of the mandates, and all of the widespread damage done to our economies, and much, much more, all in the name of COVID-19, it really does my head in. From the very first time that I heard Dr. Chetty tell stories about the dramatic improvement in his patients when he added antihistamines to the steroids that he was using, I knew that he was onto something very significant and very important. But now, as I've come to understand that hypersensitivity pneumonitis is actually a disease, it even makes more sense. So I've been doing more research, and what I've found powerfully confirms what Dr. Chetty has been saying all along. I've found reports by Korean doctors, by Chinese doctors, and by researchers and doctors from the US from very early on in the pandemic, and they all say the same thing, that examinations of patients with COVID-19 reveal inflammatory reactions that resemble what is observed in hypersensitivity pneumonitis rather than in viral pneumonia. In fact, the researchers and doctors in the US study state very clearly that they wrote their paper specifically to try and shift the emphasis around immune activity away from viral infection and toward an HP-like severe immune reaction. So the more I look into this, the more obvious it becomes that in general, our medical professionals are trying to treat the wrong disease, while our governments are trying to protect us from the wrong type of threat. So once again, I'm saying enough is enough. Surely it is time to admit that we could have got this wrong, and to listen to those who are trying to show us what could be a far better explanation of what is really going on with COVID-19. And surely it's time for our governments and our medical authorities around the world to stop resisting alternative treatments for COVID, and to engage in a dialogue with those who have demonstrated great success, like Dr. Chetty. And surely it's more important now than ever before to get the message out there, and for as many people as possible to understand that COVID-19 is not what we've been told that it is. We don't have to live in fear of it anymore. And if you are tired of all of the restrictions and all of the mandates and all the heavy-handed actions of our governments, then the very best way for you to deal with these is to help show those in authority over us that they are mostly unnecessary. And if you work in our health and medical systems, we are so grateful for all that you do. The pressure that you have had to work under has been enormous, and it's been very excessive, and I doubt very much that it's even sustainable. But if you want things to change, then the very best thing that you can do is to help as many people as possible to understand that there is a better way to treat COVID, and it doesn't require mass hospitalizations. You see, the power behind all of these issues is COVID. And if it can be shown that COVID-19 is not a threat and that it can be managed effectively, and then the power that drives all of these issues is removed. So yes, you can protest, you can hunt down conspiracy theories, you can write letters, you can sign petitions, and don't get me wrong, there's a place for all of these things and more. But if you really want to deal with the issues that are brought on by COVID, then the very best thing that you can do is to deal directly with COVID itself. You know, it's okay to be wrong from time to time. We all make mistakes. But the trick is to not stay wrong for too long. Surely misunderstanding something like COVID-19 for 2 years now is being wrong for too long. Surely it's time to embrace a better way. Please help us to get the word out there that COVID-19 is in reality a hypersensitivity reaction and entirely treatable. It doesn't have to keep ruining lives all around the world. Thanks for watching. Stay healthy and stay safe. And goodbye for now. Thank you. Farewell.